So I kind of finished Castle Meister. I'm missing 2 images and I know where they are, but I'm not going to do it because it pretty much requires me to play the whole game again. And that sounds awful because this is like a 100-hour to like a 150-hour game, right? Except when you're so high leveled now because you did all the new game content and you did the second route, you could probably do it in like 5 to 6 hours. It's not a big deal. But I'm not going to spend 5 to 6 hours to get one scene I know where it is and I know how it's going to pan out because it's easy to tell, right? Just fuck it. And this is coming from someone that finished every Spirit's training section. Now I'll talk about that later. That shit took a long time too, damn. So yeah, the game is huge, but it's a lot easier to go through than Kamidori. So I'll do some comparisons and then I'll go deeper into the just Castle Meister, right? For one thing, money becomes irrelevant after like 5 chapters. And you also don't have to pay rent like in Kamidori. I guess you can just buy basic material to skip some farming, but overall materials you need isn't going to be what's in the store anyway. I'd have to look at it, but there's probably less stuff to craft compared to Kamidori as well, except that it's not saying that much because it's still a shit ton. I also feel like there's less side quests compared to Kamidori too, but that might be my memory failing, thinking, oh, it had a lot more and probably didn't. So like I said, the game takes like 100 hours, so maybe 150, maybe 200, depending if you level every character, if you grind everything, like I did, right? Because depending on your equipment, getting just one level up can take like, 8 kills, 10 kills, or maybe like 20 kills, depending on your level and the unit that you're fighting against and the grinding. You can technically cheat in a lot of the stuff to skip the grind. Honestly, I should have done that for the spirit training, but I just didn't. But I did do it for the XP after a while. After the second route. There's only 2 routes this time around, but they're much higher quality compared to Kamidori, but the append and the new stuff is just overall weaker. Like, both of these routes end strong, whilst Kamidori's endings just suck. They're pretty much whatever compared to the character interactions. In Kamidori, Asmo gets introduced in New Game Plus and explores the concept that the world has cycles, and that the world that we live in right now is just the past in Kamidori. And that it'll eventually come back to this point again. It's like medieval times, right? Alongside that, Dion eventually becomes the huge-ass Meister, a rank that you can't get in the base game. And Castle Meister is just a group of Solomon demons invading Avero's world. Avero's the main character, right? It gives you a 50-turn counter, and you really only have like 45 because you have to wait for a certain part. Most of the cameo Shelly Angels aren't around this time around, and even the ones that are have basically no scenes, from what I can tell. It's like maybe 5 scenes from them. You do get some cup noodles after collecting a bunch of cards, but that was like Black O'Shelly's thing and not the white one, so I don't know why it's there, but whatever. I don't even use that skill because it's just you potions, what the fuck. It is kind of harder than Kamidori, but since you can just keep all your units alive so much easier because you can just consume pots without wasting a turn, it's not really a problem. They also removed the costume system and put in the monster capture system, and they're used to buff up your 6 spears, and this fixes one of the biggest issues Kamidori had, where most of the units get benched once you hit the 60s because they stop getting large stat boosts compared to the main 4 characters. Except now it's to the point where if you spend enough time, if you spend the 5 or 6 hours to grind all these monsters, right, these spirits will outperform your units for the longest time. Until again where you hit like level 60-80 range, where your normal units get this double action passive by default, whilst the spirits need these like 5-star monsters to capture, where it's fucking rare to get, where it's basically you have to do the New Game Plus and beat it, and then you have extra dungeons and you can farm it in there. And at that point, there's not a lot left to do. So that was kind of stupid, honestly. But hey, you know, it's their game. Like, the only thing left you can do is the Append 5. And that's like the only hard area left. But even then, by the time you're fighting these 5-star monsters from these optional stages, those guys are level 85 and stuff, which is already a little bit stronger than what AP5 can give you. So I don't know, man. The side characters are also kind of like 50-50. They're a lot more streamlined now. And what I mean by that is like a unit could be introduced early on in Kamidori, and then scenes would be sprinkled here and there, and eventually goes over a story point that revolves around them, right? And it was to the point that these side characters in Kamidori outshined the main cast, which was also happening in Rhapsody. In Castle Meister, outside of maybe Kisnir and the dragon, Cataract or whatever her name was, the units introduced in these arcs is probably over in the next chapter or 2. Not that they're gone from the story altogether, but their best scenes have already passed. Like, the Firefox was extremely well done, and the closest thing you have to that is probably Cataract the dragon, who I think is optional, who's like completely optional. And to the point is like, yeah, these side characters are still fun, I like them all, but the main cast is shining this one, which I guess that's what you should be doing. Anyways, that's all for the comparisons. Some parts were kind of short and vague since I was going to handle it here anyway. The plot is actually a lot better this time around. It focuses on Fia extensively compared to having just 3 lackluster routes that Kamidori had. Fia is the best part of the VN, and the easiest comparison is like, oh, she's Aqua from Konosuba if she was useful and just giddier and being less of an asshole. The voice acting on her is top notch and carries the rest of the group. The rest still fill the role like Eeyore and Dito, right? But Fia just carries the scene. Honestly, I don't know why Avro, the protagonist, doesn't get voice lines for at least the endings since they come out better with them. He gets voice lines for like some mission starts. It's like, alright, this is not even that useful. These were some really emotional scenes and you cut half of it out, but it's fine, I guess. It's still carried out well. So like the plot starts out with Avro starting a job in some ruins as a technomancer. A technomancer is basically just a mechanical engineer that delves with magic. You don't necessarily need magic, but it's hard to grasp the whole thing without it. Like Dieter's one case where, yeah, he's also technomancer and he goes back to like intuition than anything else. You're just gonna have a harder time basically. Anyways, Kisner's also there acting as a bodyguard. They get attacked and fend off some enemies. Avro falls into a pit and finds fear in the crystal. It breaks and then, okay, now they enter a contract, right? Turns out she's a god, but Avro thinks it's bullshit for a while. The ruins is actually a fort and Fia can move it. And Avro is like, hey, I have a workstation now. So yeah, Fia has amnesia and she wants to go to the specific place, but that place is off limits due to some like religious rules. They get in better terms and eventually get together whilst also doing like requests and gaining new allies, converting some enemies into allies and fending those who just want the fort. Each chapter has something going on. It's a good VN to go through when you have like a backlog of videos to watch, or you have like 1 hour long form documentary crap, or have some podcasts, some stuff like that, right? The gameplay goes on for a while and it's just longer due to how much I farm like these atelier type games. I'd rather it lean more to what it was doing the first 3 or 4 chapters where they're just going places and making stuff for these people around the area and the protagonists are just traveling around. I get that that's not the main point of the game when they're meant to be going to this destination, but some of these villains are just kind of annoying. It doesn't help that Avro changes slightly in these scenes because he becomes really preachy and he won't shut up about what's right. It just happens more often than I'd like and it just gets annoying. So there's 2 endings and you're most likely going to get the good ending without even trying unless you actively try to speedrun it and ignore most of the optional scenes. Like you have to fuck up multiple times to get the bad end. And I think it's intentional because I find the difficulty in that route to be a lot tougher than the good ending. There's a couple of mobs in there that act like regenerators from Dead Space or some other games you play, right? They just keep on coming back and it's pretty annoying when they're both damage sponges and also do okay amount of damage. It's like, fuck, what is this shit, right? But yeah, you have to be actively doing some shit trades. They give you evil music while they show up, so like you know what this is. They're not trying to hide it. And the other way is how to fuck Catarit's arc. The funny thing is I think you can do that in 2 ways. Like you can just not talk to her at all, or you can ignore her after she leaves the party for like a specific mission, but I haven't tested that. You have to finish both routes to unlock Pen 5 from what I can tell, though it doesn't have to be on the 3rd new game place. You can just reload a past save and it'll be unlocked there, which I knew that because I just did the 3rd run, which, you know, doesn't waste that much time. It's like another 2 hours. Well, 2 to 3. Speaking of Catarit, she's fucking cute, and it's kind of weird that she's into Avro when she transforms in this like adult form. I wouldn't mind swapping the first part of the Pen 5 to have some more scenes with that character, just hanging out with the group. She has a couple good scenes already, but she can't compete with Fia, and that sucks, but none of them really can. They all have their moments, but I think Mikyu is the weakest of the bunch. Then maybe Mikshana, but that mainly pertains to her character interactions, which that kind of sucks. My favorite characters are Dieter and Yorin, which is the fire spirit. And since I got to Yorin, he had an interesting bit in the start where Fia doesn't really feel a link with him, and I thought that'd be brought up later on, but it never does. Maybe they meant it as like, oh, here's a foreshadowing for something else, and no, nothing ever happened. And I guess I'll get this out of the way, and Kamidori the elemental spirits were a main focus. Not much at all in this one, and it's a shame because the first 4 have so much personality and could be used for further character interactions, but they never did. I think it might be optional, and I think that's why it never happens, but you have so many scenes with Catarit, and that's also optional. What the fuck, right? And yeah, like maybe they're not optional. I think they are. It's just you have to not capture them, and why the hell would you not capture them? It's free units, and they're really strong. There's a few scenes with the wind spirit, but otherwise they're basically just ignored outside of some other, like another scene that leads to some dungeons or new game content. They do share an append with something else, and it's great. I wish there was more of that, because that's what happens to them hanging out, them doing training. It's like, oh, this is funny. Honestly, I'd rather they spent more time expanding them instead of the other part of the append, because that part wasn't that good. It's just the Uella cameo that takes a lot longer than it should. The units vary in usefulness depending on where you are. Like Avro was pretty useless endgame, whilst Dion from Kamidori was useless until like halfway through mid-game to endgame because he became such a fucking tank. You can technically feed him the stat ups to get all this constitution up to become a tank, but at that point you might as well feed it to the better units anyway. The best thing about him is that he doesn't have a cost, and that's not saying much, but something. Like Fia has a low cost too, and for the longest time, she has only one good thing going for her, and it's because she can summon the spirits that are OP if you train them right. And if you don't, she still has one thing where if you build a proper formation where she's in the center of the spirits right, she can block 4 attacks, so she's like the perfect tank as well. By the end game where everybody's leveled up, it's probably better just have her in the back and have all those 4 spirits just go on a rampage and destroy everything. And the only reason you have her in the back is because if you die, well, if that unit dies, all the spirits also go away. Iore, or whatever how you pronounce her name, is generally always good. She has high attack and high attack speed, and her evasion is high enough to counter her low defense. Kisner was complete garbage in the beginning, but gets a shine mid-game and higher, where she becomes a boss killer alongside having really high evasion. Dieter, however you pronounce his name, kind of sucks overall, but he has some good range. Otherwise, he's like a better version of Avaro. Mikayu was too glassy at first, but eventually becomes useful when her damage is high enough and she has enough defense from armor and stuff like that. But honestly, she's still on the weaker side compared to some other units, and Rosaline also has that issue. Rosaline can also do some like 2 spirits, but I never use them all that much and they're low leveled because they just seem like ass compared to the other 4. Leash was a B-side mid-game and still holds out okay in New Game Plus. The amount of defense she has lets her tank like a whole squad of units by herself. The only downside she has is, well, for first thing, her attack speed is ass, right? But her attack power isn't the greatest either. She's maybe like the 8th highest attack or something like that. In the beginning, it doesn't matter, but by the end of the New Game Plus stuff, the spawn rate is huge. So let's say you only had 8 leeches. It's impossible, but let's say you can spawn 8 leeches, you'd never win because the spawn rate is just too high. I think Carteret is also kind of mid-tier, and so is McShawn until she gets a specific spear in New Game. Outside of Lily, all of the New Game Plus characters carry too high of a cost for you to use it. Like you can carry 2 level 90s and be around the same cost as 1 level 50 unit of the New Game Plus stuff, and to me it's just not worth it. Maybe Fornius, because I think her crit rate is like 70%, but even then it's like a 44 cost. It's really crazy. And I'm not sure why I didn't use Lily outside of her own content, because she's also really fucking strong and she only costs like 20 or something. And then there's the 6 spirits, like I said, but I rarely use the ghost ones, but the fire and wind ones are really OP, especially the fire one, Urine, right? This dude not only hits like a truck, but he also tanked for days. And he also comes with Prevail relatively fast in his levels, which buffs his damage and, well, it buffs up all his fucking stats if his HP is like under 50%. And then it buffs up again if it's under 20% or something like that. And if you get high prevails, I think the HP requirement is not as strict on it. The earth one is just the weaker version of Urine, and the reason why the wind one is better than the water is because she has projectile defense and drain. She just can't fucking die as long as the enemy isn't strong to wind, because the amount of damage she does will heal her HP if she was damaged. And if they're also ranged, all their damage is like 1 or 2 damage to the wind guy, so she's OP as well. Anyways, before going to spoilers, I'm giving this an 8. There's a good mix between scenes and gameplay. The gameplay eventually takes a lot more time if you're doing the New Game Plus stuff, and I'd recommend cheating the XP, because it's just a huge fucking grind. Like, cheating in the XP, it just speed up your time, because there's like leveling up shit is just padding. The best way to, if you don't want to cheat at all, is like, if you die 3 times, you open up the loser area, right? And if you get to like the last level, you fight this blob, and this blob gives you high XP until like level 75 or something. I feel like Kamidori had some better parts, but Castle Meister has a much better main plot going alongside like a livelier banter. It's one of those things where I feel like the 3 main plots in Kamidori is like a 5 or 6, but the side character interactions were like 7 or 8, while this is more of an 8, and the side characters varies from like 5 to 8 or 5 to 7. The training system is way better than the closed system that I had in Kamidori, but I wish there was just more side quests. It didn't have the town cohesiveness that Kamidori did. They just bring them along, and they're important for like plot points, but you never see them around in town. It's like, oh hey, what's up? Oh, these 3 characters are drinking, now you're talking to the bartender. It doesn't happen this one. At the most, you have like one scene where these 2 randos that you didn't know about, oh, it's like, oh, they're having a kid, and now they're like, you're like the godfather for the little kid or something. And that's it. It's like, it's not very cool as it was in Kamidori. And I think part of that is because like, well, the bartender in Kamidori is technically what Dieter's supposed to be doing here, so he's already a party member anyway, so, you know, that's how it is. So this is spoilers from now on. They're not very important, there's things that annoyed me here and there. So the worst conflict points are on the Inference Royalty team, right? You meet the third prince, I think it's the third prince, his name's Gilch. He's just an asshole. And since this is the first you see, you're thinking it's like, oh, this is just the over-the-top one, he's like used as a parody, right? Basically the black sheep of the group, and he really wants to take over the fort, and he's willing to use the whole city as bait to get it, because the fort's like, oh, that's a huge ass weapon, I can use it to kill Laros or whatever the side countries are. And that's how he fucks up, because all the civilians now notice that, oh, your party members are helping out the whole town. Why is the guy just throwing us under the bridge? What the fuck is this? So in the end, they all turn on him, because like, no, fuck you, you're an asshole. So now he's super butthurt and retreats, right? And then you beat him again like in 2 chapters later in this tower, and yeah, he's about to lose, and he goes into one final mode. It's like, nah, you didn't win, dude, and he just throws himself off the building and dies. It's like, well, I really don't care, fuck you anyway. But by the end of the game, you find another one of the royal members, and she's just as annoying. And it's kind of understandable because, like, well, maybe Gilch and her had a better relationship since they're both royalty. Maybe they're nice to each other. And it's not like she wanted the fort this time. She just wanted to destroy it because that's like, oh, that's one of those religion things. Because they think it's like, oh, the fort's gonna bring the end of the world, right? Until you play the bad ending, and then she's just as bad. She also wants the fort. It's like, well, the fort was found in our country. That means it's ours. Like, no, it's not. The whole religion thing says we have to destroy it. You can't own it. And she's always butters like, no, you killed my family member, fuck you, and it's like, dude, just kill the Inference royalty now, I don't care. And it was to the point where I think the game was trying to show how much destruction this fort can cause and why it needs to be controlled. And yeah, true enough, but I was basically rooting for Gaidal at that point because the Inference Kingdom should just be overrun. Their leaders are complete assholes. Like, it's to the point where if they remove the drawbacks of like, oh, yeah, Gaidal has to control Fia and she doesn't have a will anymore. If those things, like if he just found another fort around and then he's like, fuck Inference Kingdom, blow him up. I'm like, yeah. I agree. Yeah, it's fine. I'm not going to stop you. On the other side, a pretty good enemy was the Ice Duke Kalmerg, I think his name was. Yeah, he's technically also an asshole, but you can see what he was going for and how he has his own morality. He's also a damn dragon, so it's like a different thing. It's like maybe he just considers, I think he does consider humans lower. It's like, yeah, but these guys are thousands of years old or something. They're a whole other thing. And he never tried to control the fort. It's like, no, that thing has to die. All he wanted was to be king of the dragons, and it almost happened. It didn't happen, and now he's working for Katarit, and everything's good. He helps out. There's no more conniving shit. He's just a good guy now. And he's really nice, he's cool, he just helps out the whole team. The good ending has some really cool scenes, and I was streaming parts of it, and the last couple bosses were going really crazy. He's like, holy shit, but the last boss ended up being kind of boring, but it was pretty good set piece because all these characters have their own lines. They're like, oh, I'm here now, this is everything I got, oh, this is how I improved myself. It's like, oh, yeah, it's classic anime shit. This is nice, this is funny. The bad ending has something similar, but it's pretty whatever in comparison, but I like the overall plot better. It gave me some small Kira or like Kanemoto feelings in there, and it's like, oh, this is my jam, right? But after a while, the gameplay becomes kind of annoying where a lot of things becomes either too tanky or you're overrun by mob spam, and that is only really shown in New Game Plus stuff and the final fights. The fights where their places is a lot cooler than Kamidori, but also a lot weaker than Rhapsody's NG Plus stuff. There was one funny scene where one of the Solomon demons got really buttered because I took their treasure, so the boss fight became a lot harder, or at least somewhat harder, but I was already higher level than he was anyway, so it didn't really matter. There's a couple of Dragon Ball references, but my favorite one was Michanda's spear, where it could hit anything from like 9 spaces away, so I was poking everything. Too bad her damage was kind of shit because I never leveled her up that much. Even to the end, I think I got to like level 77, where Iore was like level 90, so I don't know. There was also some annoying enemies where they just had too much shit going on for them. Like, they would have Soul Shield that blocks a lot of your damage, and then they had projectile defense, so you can't just spam magic. but they also have drain, so they gain HP back, and then overall they had prevail, which always ups up their stats. Like, all right, fuck you. And most of that is only in New Game Plus. Like, the first 2 parts of Append 5 were ass to go through. The mob spam were just too annoying. Though, if you put in a lesser extent, the final boss in the bad ending was also just like that, where you basically had to fight a boss while also trying to not die from these 5 mobs that won't die, because if you kill them, they'll just come back the next turn. So you're just wasting character turns doing that. You might as well just go for the boss and just tank. There was also this one area in like chapter 4 or 5 where it's a hot spring thing. And I think you have to do it. And like Avro sees the girls and it's like, oh, I have to hide because they're gonna kick my ass if they find me. So then it's like a little mini game where kids are just walking around and you have to hide and get to this point without her noticing. Except Tere knows where the hell you are, and you could be so far away and she'll just walk to you anyway. And I had to like save scum that part. It was annoying. I think the best way you can do is if you have shoes that have Swift, then you have a chance to double action, you win automatically. But I'm not even sure if you have Swift by then anyway, so it was annoying. That's all I can say. So yeah, all in all, I liked this a lot. It was less grinding Kamidori. I'd give it like an 8. I had fun with it. I think the weakest character is probably Mikiyu. She just kind of got forgotten halfway through. Mikshana wasn't the most amazing. There's a lot of cool scenes where it's like, oh, if you do this and this, then this happens later on. And a lot of that is part of the bad ending stuff. So yeah, I'd recommend doing both endings because I think the bad ending was written better. It had more drama in it, yes. If you don't like that, then you can skim it. Overall, I think the happy ending was too happy and the bad ending was like, oh, this sucks. I think the bad ending is a lot more like a Gurren Lagann type of thing. And I think it has I know it has a sequel, but I think it follows the happy ending. They'll never do it, but it would be cool if there was like, oh, here's another sequel, and this sequel is about the bad ending this time. And there was also this one thing where this is not important, but in the New Game Plus stuff, there's an optional event where it's like, oh, it's a guy that makes a new store, right? And the store sells the monsters so you don't have to capture them. But it's to the point, it's like, I already have all these monsters. I think you have to kill them for them to show up in the store. It's like, I already farmed all of these because you can farm most of the 4-star stuff in your base game. And I think that's there specifically for people that didn't farm at all. And since there's an append that's specifically for those summons, right? They're like, well, here you can just buy them. You probably have enough money and you can do these story events or these optional scenes. And these are some good ass scenes. And it makes sense that way. But at that time, like, I wish you had some 5-stars so I can finally level up the last like 8 levels of each unit. And one of them is tied to double action. So these units are not as good as your main units now because you can only do 1 turn at a time. Sure, they're OP, but I like moving twice in 1 turn.